Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. 5 weeks after my last visit to my daughter Kim and my lover Mark, I was still euphoric from that meeting. Mark and I called each other every other day and made love on the phone several times. Unfortunately, I was unable to visit our daughter at this time due to their busy studies. But we have already planned a longer weekend from Thursday to Sunday in the next 2 to 3 weeks. On Monday, my daughter called and said that her next semester should be paid within the next week. Otherwise, she would have to leave college. I said I'd talk to her father. When my husband returned home late at night, I asked him why the college money for our daughter had not yet been paid. He looked me in the eye for a few seconds and said he would not pay for an irreverent daughter who stabs him in the back. Stunned, I asked him what he meant. He just said that he found out that his daughter does not respect her father and, perhaps even more, does not love him. That's why he decided not to pay for her studies, but I can pay for her from my account. Since it was already late in the evening, I decided to call my daughter the next day, but when I tried to talk about it with my husband, he said that he had said everything that needed to be said. I went to bed angry at him. The next day, I called my daughter and told her what her father had told me. She had no idea why her father thought she didn't love him anymore. She said she had always loved him, but I could hear the sadness in her voice. I told her that I would take care of the money for her studies, but she should talk to her father. When I went online to our accounts, I found that most of the money in the accounts was gone. I couldn't figure out where the money went. I started getting mad at my husband again and waited for him to come home. As soon as he came in, I asked him where all our money was and how I should pay for our daughter. Well, he said, I've withdrawn my money. The money that is in the shared accounts is intended for current payments for the house and your car. If it's not enough for you, then find a job. As for paying for our daughter's studies, maybe one of your lovers can pay for it. Although I don't think your college lovers will have enough money. Maybe you can charge them for your fornication. Or your regular lover will give you money. My legs gave way from the shock, and I had to sit down. What? What do you mean? I don't have any lovers. I said as convincingly as I could. I felt like I was being torn apart, and I didn't know what else to say. I had no idea at all that he knew about my extramarital lovemaking. My husband started to get angry. Oh, come on. I know about your constant lover. I also know about your college lover, Mark, and I know about all the college guys there that you made love to with the support of my ungrateful daughter. I also know that you shared her boyfriend with her. I cried because I saw the collapse of my marriage. I'm sorry, it was just making love, I whispered between sobs. Just making love? Then tell me, when was the last time you made love to me? I couldn't answer this question truthfully, he continued. And it was just a pathetic sight when you were lying with your eyes closed and I was doing all the work. That's when I realized that something was terribly wrong in our marriage. And as for making love, it was so long ago that even I don't remember. I understand that you didn't have time and didn't need me between all this phone lovemaking with Mark and your constant lover. I just sat there like a deer in the headlights. I didn't realize that I had neglected my husband and marriage for so long. I looked into his eyes and saw how much he was in pain. What a terrible wife I've been. Who knows what kind of STDs you have now? And our daughter even encouraged you to give a damn about our marriage. She hasn't spoken to me once since she moved into the dorm. She even ignored my messages a few weeks ago. Now you know why I won't pay for her studies. She needs to find a job. Maybe she can prostitute herself like mom. Maybe together you can earn enough to pay for college. He said it with pain and anger. I just sat there and cried. And now I'm going to sleep. Over the past couple of days, I've moved most of my stuff into the guest room. I'm not surprised you didn't even notice. I'll sleep there, since I don't see any need to pretend. I sat there for a long time, or at least it seemed to me that it was a very long time. Then I called my daughter, even though it was too late. But I needed to talk to someone, and I had to tell her about our problems. Without any greetings, I just cried on the phone. Kim, your father knows. Your father knows about Mark, about all the lovemaking that was there. He even knows about my lover here. And he knows about your involvement, which is why he won't pay for your studies. Oh shit, Mom. How does he know? Do you have a lover at home too? Damn, what about Mark? What's going to happen now? And who's going to pay for college? We hurt him. We both caused him a lot of pain, and I do not know if our marriage will survive. He said hurtful things about both of us, and honestly, I can't blame him. I do not know where he hid most of our money, but there is no way I can talk to him about it right now. I have to let him cool down and stay obedient. Maybe I can save our marriage, but at the moment I wouldn't bet on it. I'm not sure if you should call him right now. He told me that you've been neglecting him since you moved into the dorm and even ignored his messages. So please stay calm. Yes, and tell Mark not to call me. I can't see him or any of the other guys anymore. And I don't think your boyfriend Bob will ever be welcome here. My life is falling apart. There is no other word for it. I had everything. A loving husband who provided for both my daughter and me in every way. He earned enough money so that I didn't have to go back to work after our daughter Kim was born. We weren't rich, but we had a comfortable life with a nice house, and I didn't have to worry about money. Okay, sometimes I had to argue with my husband, but most of the time I got my way. We had a varied bed life, but in the last few years it has decreased because my husband has been promoted several times and had to work late more often. Maybe that's why I was vulnerable to the advances of my longtime lover Billy. With my high libido, I thought I could have a lover without hurting my husband. I thought I could take my cake and eat it, and my husband wouldn't suffer from it. It would even improve our personal life. How stupid it sounds now. Then the time came when our daughter moved to college, and I visited her there for 2 weekends. The first weekend I met Mark at a frat party I attended with my daughter. I spent time in bed with him, and my daughter even appreciated it. During this time, I also met with Billy, but I didn't tell him about Mark in my weekend. What I didn't realize was that I was completely neglecting my husband. On my second visit to college, I met Mark again and made love to him and about a dozen of his friends throughout the weekend. My daughter knew everything and was happy for me, and neither of us thought about my husband, her father. We were endlessly selfish. 5 weeks after my second weekend, my life collapsed. My husband stopped paying for college and told me he knew about my lover. But my downfall didn't end there. I spent the rest of the week in a daze. I called my daughter several times and we cried together. I can honestly say that I never wanted to hurt my husband. I just didn't think what would happen if my husband found out. Today I realized that I was living in my own fantasy world where I could have everything. My daughter said she was coming home for the weekend and we should sit down and talk to him. I wasn't sure if it would help me, but maybe it could restore her relationship with her father. Mark called once after that, but I turned him off. Even Billy, whom I usually met 2 times a week, did not occur to me. He wrote to me several times asking me to come in, but I once told him that I had problems that needed to be solved and I would contact him later. My husband didn't come home in the evenings. At first I thought he was making love to other women, but then I saw the gym clothes in the basket. I remembered that I had seen it before, but I hadn't thought about it then. Well, that shows where my mind was. Then the weekend came. Kim arrived on Friday afternoon, and we talked. I even told her about Billy, the only secret I kept from her. When my husband came in late at night, my daughter ran up to him, hugged him, and shouted several times, "I'm sorry." He just patted her on the back and said, "We'll talk in the morning," and went to the guest room. I know this indifference hurt her, but she said she understood. After a sleepless night, we met in the morning at our dining table. After looking at my daughter and me for a few seconds, he just said, "Who wants to start talking? What can you both say about this mess?" My daughter and I discussed this the night before and thought it would be better if she acted as a mediator, despite her role in this. "Dad, first I want to say that I'm sorry that we hurt you so much. Both Mom and I really love you, and that has never changed. We know that our actions show something different." My husband just grumbled, but didn't say anything, so my daughter continued. "You know that I have always been my mother's best friend, not just a child. She shared her life with me a lot, so I also know a lot about your marriage." At these words, my husband looked at me in surprise and angrily. I couldn't look into his eyes for long, so I looked down at my hands. I remembered what I had told my daughter over the past few years, and it didn't paint a good picture of my life with my husband, worse than it really was. My daughter continued, "My mother told me that your bed life has been suffering for many years. You started working longer hours and often got tired. I know she started using toys to satisfy her needs because she didn't want to put pressure on you. I didn't know that she started an affair with Billy a few years ago. Until then, she had been speaking in a normal voice, but she looked at me accusingly. But looking back, I've never seen any improvement. At least she didn't tell me. She always told me that she wasn't satisfied and didn't get any attention from you. That was the main reason I agreed to her having an affair with Mark during her first visit. I thought it would satisfy her needs in the long run and wouldn't hurt you in any way. I knew that she had been in contact with him for the next few weeks, and I even knew that she wanted to meet him again. However, I didn't know how intense their calls and conversations were. I found out about it after talking to Mark. Yes, I persuaded her to meet him again the second weekend when she arrived at college. It wasn't supposed to be a long-term affair. I knew she wasn't just making love to Mark. But after that, I just thought it wouldn't hurt anyone if she let her hair down for the whole weekend. At these words, she lowered her eyes and blushed, but continued. Yes, I let her use my boyfriend, Bob. For some reason, it seemed normal for a connection between my mother and me. After she finished, we sat in silence and thought about what she had said. I started crying and realized that a miracle was needed to save the marriage. After a long pause, my husband turned to me and coldly asked if I wanted to add anything as an explanation. I couldn't speak, so I just shook my head negatively. He waited a few more seconds to see if I would change my mind. Then he leaned back and determined my future. Let's summarize the results. My wife started her long-term affair because I had to work long hours to feed my family. She didn't want to talk to me about it because she didn't want to hurt me. Instead, she made love to other men, thinking it wouldn't hurt me. She wanted to explore her experience by having an affair with Mark instead of talking to me. She also became a cheater for more than a dozen frat boys to meet her needs with the support of my daughter. She even made love to her daughter's boyfriend to get closer to her. When he said it like that, it sounded really terrible. I shyly leaned back in my chair and gave way to tears. But I didn't think for a second that they would have any effect on him. After a while, he spoke again, addressing his daughter. Let's get something straight. Your mother had a good job before she got pregnant with you. Don't get me wrong. The pregnancy was planned, and I've always wanted children. It was for this reason that we moved into this bigger house for all the children we had planned, even when I argued that this house was too big. But she countered that she would return to work after the planned children went to school and contribute to the household. I sat there in tears and remembered that time. A time when we were happy. It's true. I wanted this big house and to fill it with children, and I really wanted to get back to work. After you were born, she stayed at home and took care of you. After a few years, I wanted more children, but your mother decided that one was enough and that she didn't want any more. I never forced her to do more because I thought it was her decision after all. When you started school, she also decided that she didn't want to go back to work and would focus on your growing up. At first it was okay because I was earning enough for a good life. There was just a little problem. Now we had a big house that I had to pay for, and your mother didn't come back to work. In itself, this would not be such a problem because I do my job well and earn good money. However, since your mother stayed at home, she had to fill in her free time, especially after you started school. Oh my God, I knew where this was going. I never realized how bad it was. Over time, her hobbies began to cost a lot of money. I don't want to explain what your mother spent our money on. I don't want to repeat her visits to the beauty salon every 2 weeks for a few $100s, or her shoes, handbags, and dresses, which she has used maybe once over the years. And I don't want to mention her new car, which she had to change every 3 or 4 years, of course, with all the extras. Oh, she even spent some of the money I earned on her lover? While I received a gift certificate for Christmas, her lover received an expensive watch with a personalized engraving. At these words, my daughter looked at me in surprise. That was also something I hadn't told her about. I felt even more ashamed. You may wonder why I didn't say anything. Actually, I've been saying something from the beginning. I had a few conversations about money with your mother, but I kept them away from you. She always promised to cut her expenses. Well, it lasted a few weeks, and then she started spending again. After a few years, I stopped discussing it, but I had to work longer to finance your mother. And of course you. I don't need to tell you what hobbies you've tried over the years, and I'm sure you have no idea how much they cost. Your mother always wanted the best for you. Over the past few years, 70% of our money has gone to you and your mother. With the remaining 30%, I paid my expenses and maintained our nest. Your mother once accused me of spending $150 on a tennis racket while she spent $400 on a new bag the same week. And I really would like to see your mom and all the lingerie she bought from Victoria's Secret or Agent Provocateur, but it seems to be reserved for lovers. My God, I thought, how much he knows. I've never seen it so bad. I never knew about our financial situation. The money was just there, and it could be spent. When I was buying underwear, I kind of thought about my husband, but I never put it on for him, even when he asked me to. He interrupted my train of thought by continuing. So, my dear daughter, you will understand that money does not grow on trees. I had to work for it, and I had to work long hours to bring in extra money. I like my job, so it wasn't a big problem for me. Of course, my long hours of work should have affected our bed life. After working 10 or more hours a day, I don't have the strength to caress your mom for a long time before starting the main part. She always needed me to seduce her with caresses and caress her body for a long time. Don't get me wrong, I love foreplay, but I don't always have the strength for it. Hearing about our bed life, my daughter began to blush. She wasn't ready to talk about making love to her father, even though she started it herself. Oh, come on, my dear daughter. There's no reason to blush. If you were talking to your mother about our bed life, you should have known all this. Did your mother tell you that we had a pretty active bed life at the beginning of our marriage? We did this often, and sometimes several times a day. Of course, it decreased after you were born. It suited me. But what your mother has never been, at least with me, is truly entrepreneurial. Hearing it from him like that, I wanted to object, but I couldn't. Everything he said was true. He tried to be more adventurous and try something new, but I refused. I didn't want to be considered a cheater. What a joke it is now. How my lover or the frat boys saw me, I didn't care. So I was ready to do things that I wouldn't do with my husband. So, my dear daughter, blaming me for our bad bed life and using it as an excuse doesn't work. Did your mom say anything to me? No. Has she ever introduced new bed practices? No. Has she ever agreed to new things introduced by me? Practically not. About 90% of our sexual intercourse took place with me as an active partner when your mother was lying on her back. So don't tell me it's my fault that she's cheating on others. The last tirades got louder and louder, and I leaned back more and more. He took a few deep breaths and continued more calmly. I do not know what you both expect from me, but there will be changes in all our lives. You can think about your future until tomorrow. Then I'll decide what happens next. With these words, he looked at us for several seconds, which seemed like hours. Then he got up and left the room. Half an hour later, he came down with a small gym bag and said he would be back late at night and we didn't have to wait for him with dinner. Kim and I sat at the table, looking at each other, but lost in our own thoughts. I have always considered myself a man of high morals and a high sense of family. But when I came face to face with the truth, I suddenly saw myself for who I really was. A selfish, cheating fool. Self-awareness is the first step to self-improvement, but damn it, it hurts. But what hurt the most was that I hurt my husband. For some reason, I didn't feel sorry for myself. Not a bit. But I felt sorry for my husband and my daughter. How, and especially when I lost my morals. It had to be decided for myself, regardless of whether my marriage would last or not. I don't want to go into details, but when I talked to my daughter for the rest of the day, I knew that our relationship had deteriorated badly. She did not openly accuse me, but from her wording and tone, I realized that she was accusing me of presenting her father as a bad person. She wanted to establish a relationship with her father, and I thought she had a great chance. I'll help her in any way I can. However, I didn't know if my marriage was mortally wounded or if it could be saved. I knew it would never be the same again, and I had to make a lot of concessions. I knew that I loved my husband, although my actions did not show it. And I knew that I respected my warm-hearted husband for all that he had done for us. I've never let anyone scold him seriously. I have to take the blame on myself, take responsibility for my actions, and start giving without expecting anything. The next Sunday morning started the same way as the day before. My daughter and I were sitting at the table when my husband came. Before any of them could speak, I said, "Please let me start before I lose my courage." They both looked at me in surprise, and when they didn't object, I continued. "My dear husband, I'm sorry that I hurt you so much. I do not know when I lost my way, but please believe me when I say that I have always loved you. Be sure that nothing you did or didn't do was the reason. The blame lies entirely with me. I do not know why I did this, but I intend to find out with professional help. I know you're not happy with our daughter right now, but please understand, she's just as much a victim as you are. A victim of my selfishness and the lies I told her. And the lies in the form of my omission of important facts. With the last sentences, they looked at me with big eyes. I don't think they expected anything like this at all. Before I lost my temper, I continued, even if you don't want to see me anymore, please make peace with our daughter. She needs you as a responsible father to get her back on the right track. She needs you a lot more than she needs me. At least for now. I know that I have no right to ask, but if you find in your heart the desire to give me a second chance, I will do everything to deserve it. I know you'll never forget what I've done, but I hope you can forgive me sometime in the future. If you go on without me to be happy with someone else, you will forgive me at least so that you will be happy. With that last sentence, I lost my temper and ran upstairs to the bedroom. I wasn't going to say the last sentence because I didn't want to think about life without him. But right at that moment, all I wanted was for him to be happy with anyone. It took me 15 minutes to calm down, and I went downstairs. I'm sorry, I said when I sat down again. Everyone seemed to be lost in their own thoughts, but then my husband straightened up. I thank you for your confession. I didn't expect it to be so serious. After a few seconds, he continued. I don't want to beat around the bush. I have already consulted with a divorce lawyer. With this revelation, I leaned back in my chair. I knew my marriage was over, and all I had to do was wait for someone to serve me. I knew I wouldn't resist. I almost missed what he said next. Unfortunately, the laws of this state in case of divorce are actually not in my favor. After considering all the possibilities with a lawyer, we came to the conclusion that it is cheaper to leave you here. I looked up with surprise and hope on my face. He looked into my eyes, but of course there was resentment in his eyes. But this was the first time that I had a faint hope of saving my marriage. But I knew it was going to be a long way, and I'm ready to go through it. Of course, there will be serious changes. First of all, I canceled all your credit cards. You will both receive debit cards, into which I will deposit a small but appropriate amount each week. With this money, you have to pay for groceries and some personal expenses. I know you need to seriously adjust your expenses, but this time it's up to me. Financial difficulties did not scare me so much, although I knew that I would have to adapt. I used to have money when I wanted to. I'll have to get out of the habit. But the most important thing is your infidelity. You know that you hurt me with your lovemaking, and even though you told me that you never lost respect for me, I feel insulted. I hope you don't expect physical affection in the foreseeable future, because I'm not attracted to touching you at the moment. It caused me very deep pain. It was like a slap in the face. I always wanted to look good, and it was important for me to know that men wanted me. But now the man I really loved didn't want me, didn't even want to touch me, and that shocked me. But when I felt my face turn pale, I realized that it wasn't my body itself that made me unattractive. That was what I did with my body. I have allowed other men to use it, although only my husband should be allowed to use it. At that moment, I felt dirty myself. Not only my body, my soul also felt dirty. I knew that I had to cleanse my body and soul of deception and selfishness. One more remark. I expect you to get a clean bill of health. At these words, my face turned red with shame. For all my lust, I didn't think about my health, much less the health of my loved ones. This may be the hardest part for you, but I don't want to refrain from making love. We have already talked about the reasons. So now I have a pass to the gym for the future. I will not just make love to any woman, but if I find someone worthwhile, I will make love to her without regret. I won't flaunt it in front of you, and it won't be someone from our circle of friends. Preferably, it would be some kind of stranger. I'll keep it a secret, but I'll tell you if you want to know. Oh my God, he's going to cheat. Several feelings came flooding in. Anger, pain, hatred, humiliation. With that last feeling, I suddenly realized how he felt when he found out about my deception. It didn't make me feel better, but I knew I had no right to complain. I just leaned back. Of course, if you want to continue this marriage, you must remain faithful. Otherwise, I'll divorce you. I can't take any more disrespect. Maybe I should make love to your lover's girlfriends. But as far as I know, only 3 of them have regular girlfriends. Bob has a girlfriend, but I'm not sure I want to make love to my own daughter. Kim looked at him with wide eyes. And your longtime lover, Billy? Well, he doesn't have a steady girlfriend, but he has 2 other married women with whom he regularly dates. You're not his only woman. He's a gambler who likes to take advantage of married women and cuckold their husbands. There is at least one marriage that fell apart because of him about 2 years ago. That was something new. I didn't think much about Billy or what he did when I wasn't with him. There was no love on my part, only carnal lust. These are the rules for the future. If you can't live with them, you'll have to file for divorce on your own. With that, he got up and left us sitting. There was a long silence while we thought about what we were facing. The only problem for me was the realization that my husband could cheat on me. But what choice did I really have? I could get a good divorce settlement, but at what cost? I love my husband and I don't want to lose him. I knew that I had to make myself desirable to him, in body and even more so in soul. I had to bring him back. We didn't talk much the rest of Sunday. Kim left for her college on Sunday evening. I didn't know what surprises the next few days would bring me. On Monday evening, an excited Kim called. She said that Mark's fraternity had a party this weekend. There, one of the girls, who was very drunk, was raped by several guys. She reported the rape. On the same day, someone called the police and reported a large distribution of banned substances in this particular fraternity. During the anti-illicit substances raid, many prohibited substances of various kinds were found in the fraternity building. It was Mark's fraternity, and according to Kim, a lot of illegal substances were found in his room too. I looked at my husband and saw the corners of his mouth turn up. I had a feeling that he knew about all this before. Maybe he had arranged it all. When I asked him, he just told me that there was no way he would have organized the rape of an innocent girl. It was just a coincidence and the icing on the cake. The college has closed this fraternity, and its students will face difficult times. Their future careers are not looking so good. On Thursday, I received another unexpected call. There were no videos of me, but since I was one of his frequent contacts, I was interviewed. My husband supported me during the investigation, and a few days later I was acquitted. A few weeks later, Billy called me from prison. He received an anonymous letter saying, "Don't use married women." I didn't ask, but I knew my husband had a hand in it. I know that he has a friend who is well-versed in IT security. I was just hoping that this friend hadn't seen my videos. Since I knew that he had taken revenge on my lovers, I was just waiting for the axe to fall on me. A year later, I'm happy. I'm still married to my husband, and I love him more than ever. Of course, it was a difficult year. I immediately went to a psychologist to understand myself. A full medical examination. Yes, I also received a clean health certificate. Revealed a hormonal imbalance that could have started a long time ago, apparently shortly after my pregnancy, and I started treatment. Psychologically, I was diagnosed with a mild form of shopping addiction. These things, combined with a high libido and less time with my husband, may have led to my infidelities. I could have used that as an excuse, but deep down I knew that I was making the decisions about cheating. I made sure that my husband knew all this, but I never presented it as an excuse. And I made sure that my husband knew it too. A few weeks later, I found a job in my profession at a small startup. My boss is a woman. I don't want any misunderstandings with my husband, who was cheated on by her husband. I told her all about myself, and at first she was very strict with me, but she saw how I wanted to become a better woman. So gradually we became good friends. The job doesn't pay that much money, but it's satisfying. My husband told me that I can keep this money for myself, but I deposit it into his account. I live on his debit, which he has increased over the past year, but I have never used it completely, except when I bought him something as a gift. My daughter has restored her relationship with her father, and they are closer than ever. For all incest fans, did they make love, as he once mentioned in passing? I don't think so, but at the moment I don't care. All I want is for them to be happy. My own relationship with my husband took longer to get better. Just a few weeks later, one of my friends mentioned that my husband had become a real stud. He reduced his working hours and started doing fitness. Within a few months, he became very fit. In the summer, our daughter was visited by several of her college friends. They seemed to flirt with him more than was necessary, and he liked their attention. Was I jealous? Of course, but surprisingly, more than that, I was proud that he was attractive to young women. Did he sleep with any of them? I do not know and do not want to know. After all, he had a pass to the gym. It took 3 months before he returned to our bedroom, and another 3 months before we started making love again. It happened when I surprised him in the bathroom. He was fighting back. I told him he didn't have to fight himself off. He can use my body any way he wants. He doesn't need to make love to me. He can just use me for his own pleasure. It was the first night of intimacy. He just used me very much. I knew that this was how he vented his anger, and I accepted it without complaint. And I even enjoyed it, but I missed making love. We went out to dinner with friends one day. When we returned, we were both pretty tipsy and made love for the first time. With this, we became real husband and wife again. Our daughter immediately felt it when she visited us and was happy for us. A year later, we went out to dinner together. After dinner, he told me that he would revoke his own hall pass. If I want to know anything about what happened during this time, then I have one last opportunity to ask and he will answer. After this evening, he would never say anything about it again. I thought about it for a minute, and then I just said, I don't want to know anything about the past. But I ask that in the future, everything that happens between us.